Well, look, thanks very much for joining us, first off.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And thanks for your participation in the group for sure. You make some fantastic, pedals and things like that.
Thank you.
So the idea of today is really to get a little bit to know about the guy that makes the pedals, get to know a bit about you.
Cool.
So if we can go from back to the very start and talk about your musical influences.
Sure.
So what were some of your musical influences and favorite guitarists when you first started out and listening to music as a young lad? Well, you're still a young lad now, but there you are.
I'm 20, almost 28, but I mean, it's still young. So as far as musical influences go, I really grew up with a lot of 70s and 80s music. That's what my dad listened to, and my sister as well. So I was always into that vintage rock. Well, I say vintage, but that's what it is now.
Well, it is out vintage, isn't it? I mean, I'm very much into the 90s scene, and I was there in the 90s, and that's considered vintage now as well.
Yeah.
So there you are.
It's crazy.
So, but anyway, sorry.
Well, when I first started playing guitar, electric guitar especially, I was really into Guns N' Roses and Slash. He was my idol for the longest time. I wanted to learn to play guitar just like him, and that's every time I pick up my guitar, I'd play a different Guns N' Roses song, and I kind of grew out of that. I still admire the guy, and I really enjoy his playing. I think that definitely influenced the way I play guitar, and I'm really a fan of the blues rock style of playing, but still with melodic, and harmonic kind of emotional, additions to that playing. And
well,
I think
it's funny you say that, and one of the reasons why I like Slash is, I mean, I love sort of blues music and blues rock and that sort of thing. And essentially, Slash is a blues rocker on steroids, isn't he?
Yeah.
He can play really fast, but he's very rooted in the blues, isn't he? And that the emotions of, I mean, November Rain, for example, it's a beautiful solo, heartfelt solo, and then he can rip it up as well, can't he?
Yeah, definitely. I always just was mesmerized by, listening to the quick runs that he does and all the little notes that he throws in there. And it just, those little additions are what makes him sound different than just a blues rock player, And so that was definitely the main one for me for the longest time. And
I'd say that there's a video where he comes on with Nile Rodgers of Le Freak, and he does the solo to Le Freak, and well, the band are sort of like playing, and and it's coming towards the middle bit, and Nile Rodgers is just chugging away on his Strat, playing the riff, and then he just shouts Slash, and Slash comes on. And he comes running down the stage and he just blitzes this solo, and it's fantastic.
Wow.
So I'll send you it. It's a great clip.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. I don't think I've seen that one.
Great clip. So, I mean, you mentioned sort of 70s rock. What sort of bands within the 70s era do you admire?
I really like the Eagles, CCR, let's see, Doobie Brothers, basically all the stuff my dad was playing when I was growing up. Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, that kind of stuff.
Your dad's got good taste.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it, how we tend to we pick up sounds and things when we're youngsters from our parents and things. Of music, like I picked up a lot of punk influences from my sister. She's 5 years older, so she was listening to people like Sex Pistols, Susie and the Banshees, and people like that. So I absorbed that as a child. as a
Yeah.
youngster, you know. And then my parents were really into Queen.
Mm-hmm.
So I got influenced into that as well. And it was really until the 80s that I heard Eric Clapton and Mark Knopfler, and that kind of sent me on a completely different route,
Yeah.
you know.
I feel like that's kind of where I've been the last 3 to 5 years, is taking a different shift and listening to all the music that I never really listened to growing up. For example, well, I heard like Led Zeppelin, all the bands I just named, Pink Floyd and stuff. I heard all the popular songs, but it wasn't until really recently that I actually dove into the albums and listened to them back to back. And it really started as when I started building pedals. It was something for me to put on in the background, and I would just play an album all the way through. And I got through a lot of albums.
Yeah, I'll tend to do the same thing when I'm working. Where I've usually got some Pink Floyd or something, some Led Zeppelin as well going on. So
Yeah.
So when did you get into guitar effects? When did the rabbit hole start for you?
Well, for me, it was around the beginning of high school. So I started playing guitar when I was 11, got my first electric guitar when I was like 13. And I always wanted to be in like a rock band. And I just had my little Epiphone SG and a little, what was the amp? Like a Marshall, just like a little 10-watt Marshall
Yep.
solid state amp. And it didn't really have the kind of rock and sound that I wanted. So I went to the music store and I was trying to find actually like a Boss DS1 kind of distortion pedal. And the music store employee that was working talked me into a Digitech RP70. It's like the little digital pedal. He's like, yeah, this is the same price and it has all these effects. And while it didn't sound anything like what I wanted, it was a great introduction to different types of effects and how they sound, and it was a great time intensive tool that I sat there and just turned knobs and stuff, and that really got me interested. But then ever since then, it was always a search for a better sound, and I ended up getting my first analog pedal, which was a Slash Crybaby, or sorry, GCB 95 Crybaby.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Very nice. And you make some wahs as well, which
I do.
which we'll come on to in a bit later on. So
Sounds good.
so so when did you? There comes a time, I suppose, isn't there, when you're playing guitar effects, that you eventually sort of open one up,
Mm-hmm.
or you buy a kit or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
when did that sort of transition happen for you, and of actually looking at the components in a guitar effect, maybe modding it or building a kit? What was the story?
Well, I've always been kind of a tinkerer. So growing up, anytime I had something that didn't work, I'd take it apart and see if I could figure out how to make it work again. That's just what I was used to. And so it kind of felt natural with pedals, when something stopped working. A lot of the stuff that I was buying was secondhand. So, you've got like some noise cutting in and out and stuff. So I'd take a look and I'd be like, oh, there's a wire loose right here. I'd, get my solder iron and it would be fixed. I think the very first time that I started like modding it, it was either my MXR Phase 90 or my Crybaby that I just mentioned, because I did mod both of those. I don't remember which one was first, but I was never really happy with the way the wah sounded. So I decided I wanted to try swapping out the phasal inductor, which I did, and it changed the sound a little bit. So that was cool. It was an interesting experience. But on the MXR Phase 90, I was listening to a lot of YouTube demos and stuff, and I really liked how the script MXR Phase 90 sounded. And I was like, my Phase 90 doesn't sound that cool. I want to buy one of those, but of course they're a lot more expensive. And at the time I didn't have a job. I was just a kid in high school. So I looked up how to mod it, and it was just like as simple as cutting a resistor. There's something else. I think there's like changing a value of one resistor. it's been a long time, but I did that and I really liked the result. So
Wow, excellent,
yeah.
excellent. And excuse me, when did you start up CK Audio? What was how long has the company been in existence, and what was the inspiration for going up to modding pedals to actually having, building them
Actually
and
building
selling
them.
them? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. CK Audio has been going for 1 solid year now, since October. So just a little over a year. I've been actually building pedals, for about 2 years, from scratch. I've been kind of getting into kits and stuff over the last few years, and learning a lot about electronics, because I don't really have a background in electronics. And eventually I got to a point when I was building that I was like, if I really enjoy building these, I'm sure there's other people out there that would enjoy playing them too. And so really the pedal that made me decide to start up CK Audio was the clone that I started building, which I actually have here.
All right.
So I started building these I built 3, 1 for me and 2 for a couple of friends. And a couple of friends really liked them. And I was like, it'd be something fun, even if it's just a hobby that I could do on the side and make pedals for people. So that's kind of what started it all.
And is that a replica of the Clone Centaur?
It is, yeah. That all started because I've learned about all the hype and all the people talking about it and all that, and I couldn't afford a real one, and I knew how to build them, so I decided I'd take a stab at building one myself.
So where do you find the information about the diodes that were used in that particular pedal?
I mean, there's a lot of hype and mystery around the diodes, and really they're just germanium diodes. I think JHS did a video recently where he's talking about how I forget the guy's name that builds them, but he said a lot of times, I've tried tons of different diodes, and this is the one that sounds the best, and it makes a really big difference in my circuit. And there might be differences, but to most people, as long as it's the same forward voltage, which is 0.035, whatever, that's that's how much it's clipping the signal. And as long as you're in that ballpark with a germanium diode, you pretty much get there. So with mine, I actually don't even use the same part number. The diode in the original clone was a 1N34A, and I use a different germanium diode that I think sounds a little bit smoother. So yeah.
Excellent. Good stuff. Good stuff. So whereabouts is CK Audio based?
Kingman, Arizona. So we're in the United States, in the sunny state of Arizona.
Very nice.
Yep.
And whereabouts? I mean, who's buying your pedals at the minute? Where are you supplying to mainly?
Mainly just the U.S. I kind of do international sales on a situational basis. So if someone's interested and they hit me up about it, then I'll say, yeah, I can ship to you. This is how much it would cost. Just because, especially right now, international shipping is kind of crazy. Takes a long time at times, and it's really expensive at times. So so I'd like to get pedals out to everybody, but not everybody can afford to pay the shipping.